Good morning, everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Before we really get going today, I'd love for you to just settle in. Maybe take a nice, slow, deep breath, get truly comfortable wherever you're sitting, and prepare yourself for a message that might genuinely surprise you. For decades now, the medical establishment has offered seniors a very specific and honestly a very well-meaning piece of advice. They say, it's time to slow down, take it easy, just accept the natural decline that comes with age. You've probably heard this from your own doctors, or maybe you hear it from your children who love you dearly and just want you to be safe. But what if I told you that this advice isn't just outdated, but potentially harmful to your long-term health? What if the actual things keeping people sharp, strong, and deeply independent at 75, 80, or even 85 years old are the complete opposite of slowing down? Well, today we are going to look closely at the simple, everyday habits that the most vibrant, independent seniors all share. I'm talking about the folks who still drive themselves to appointments without any anxiety, the ones who still tend to their beloved gardens, and who can remember every single grandchild's birthday with total clarity. And you know what the absolute best part of what we're going to discuss today is? It has absolutely nothing to do with expensive, complicated supplements, and it definitely doesn't involve impossible, grueling workouts. Every single thing we're going to talk about is entirely within your reach.
Okay, let's dive into this together, because it can be incredibly frustrating, right? You go to the doctor and any little ache, pain, or temporary memory slip is just casually brushed off as, well, you're simply getting older. We've been completely conditioned by society to accept that winding down is just mandatory. We literally start to believe that doing less is the only way to hold on to what we have left. But thankfully, a group of brilliant researchers decided to actually test this deeply ingrained assumption. There was a landmark study published by the Stanford Center on Longevity, and they followed over 4,200 adults. All of them were between the ages of 70 and 90, and they didn't just check in on them once and say goodbye. They tracked their daily habits meticulously for 12 full years. And here's the kicker. They weren't looking for marathon runners or people with superhuman genetics. They were just looking for everyday, normal folks who somehow managed to keep living life entirely on their own terms, right in their own homes. And what they discovered over those 12 years? It completely shatters the myth that we just need to take it easy.
Because what the researchers found was absolutely striking. Seniors who maintained just 4 or more of the specific daily habits we're about to discuss were 61% less likely to experience accelerated functional decline. Let's really pause and think about what that means for a moment. 61%. Accelerated functional decline is that rapid loss of physical and mental independence that tragically sends so many older adults into assisted living care far earlier than they ever planned. So 61% is a massive, life-changing number. It's practically a shield against decline. It's the profound difference between living life on your own terms, in your own beloved home, and having to live on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to tease something very important before we go any further. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful, most protective habit of all 6, is something almost no cardiologist or general practitioner ever brings up during a standard checkup. It actually has nothing to do with traditional diet or physical exercise, but major institutions like Johns Hopkins say it's the ultimate predictor of preserving your independence. So please stay with me until the very end of this explainer today, because that single, remarkable habit could beautifully change the rest of your life.
Let's start with Section 1, the bodily foundations, relearning hydration and sleep.
So, we're starting our journey together with the absolute most foundational aspects of our biology. You see, taking care of an older body requires a completely different, much more intentional approach than when you were in your 30s or 40s. You will literally have to relearn your body's signals, because what worked back then simply doesn't work the same way now. And this brings us to habit number 6, strategic hydration. Let's look closely at the difference here. At age 45, your thirst signals are loud and clear. When you need water, your body practically shouts at you, and your kidneys are filtering everything at peak efficiency. But after age 75, your kidneys naturally lose about 40% of their filtering efficiency. And even more critically than that, your body's thirst signals become significantly blunted. This means you will genuinely stop feeling thirsty, even when your cells are severely, desperately dehydrated. Now, think of your bloodstream like a river delivery system. When you're mildly dehydrated, that river runs low and sluggish. The little delivery trucks carrying vital oxygen and nutrients to your brain and your muscles start to slow down, packages get lost, and the whole biological operation just starts to break down. Chronic mild dehydration dramatically impairs your balance, it slows your reaction time, and it causes what so many people mistakenly write off as just age-related short-term memory loss. I mean, the human brain is 75% water, so when that river is low, your mind gets incredibly foggy.
So you might be wondering, how do the most highly independent seniors handle this biological shift? Well, they don't just drink water when they feel thirsty, because they know that specific alarm bell in the brain is broken. Instead, they follow a very simple, strategic protocol. First, They drink 12 to 16 ounces of water right out of bed, before they have their morning coffee, before breakfast, before they do anything else. And this is because aging bodies lose up to 30% more fluid overnight through breathing and mild perspiration than younger bodies do. You basically wake up every morning in a physical deficit. Then, they make sure to have a small glass of water with every single meal and one more in the mid-afternoon. Now, here is a crucial synergy tip that makes all the difference in the world. Add just a tiny pinch of high-quality sea salt to that morning water. Why? Well, because aging kidneys really struggle to retain sodium. If you just drink plain, unmineralized water, it's just going to pass right through your system, sending you rushing to the bathroom without actually hydrating the cells that so desperately need it. The salt literally acts as a key, unlocking your cells so they can absorb and hold on to that water.
To truly understand how powerful this one simple shift is, let me share the story of Margaret. She's a wonderful 81-year-old woman from Boise, Idaho. Now, Margaret absolutely loved tending to her garden, but she started suffering from this terrible, persistent afternoon brain fog. And even worse, she felt severe dizziness whenever she stood up from weeding her flower beds. It got to the point where she became so afraid of falling that she just stopped gardening altogether. She described feeling like her thinking was constantly wrapped in thick, heavy cotton, and she began, quite naturally, that she was developing dementia. But here's the thing. She wasn't dramatically dehydrated enough to end up in a hospital. She was just chronically, mildly underhydrated for months on end. By simply adopting this morning hydration protocol, complete with that tiny pinch of sea salt, her daily life was completely transformed. Just 6 weeks later, her balance was steady again. That terrifying dizziness had vanished, and she was right back in her garden. She beautifully described the change to us, saying, "It felt like someone had cleaned the windows of my mind." That is just one intentional habit with incredibly life-changing results.
Which brings us to habit number 5, a purposeful, fiercely protected sleep schedule. You see, after the age of 75, your body produces about 70% less melatonin. That's the natural hormone that makes you feel sleepy. And your slow-wave sleep, which is that deep, physically repairing phase of rest, drops by up to 80%. When we lose that deep sleep over time, our brains physically accumulate amyloid plaques, which are directly associated with Alzheimer's disease and severe cognitive decline. Now, highly independent seniors fight this, but they don't do it with sleeping pills. They do it by going to bed within the exact same 30-minute window every single night and waking up at the exact same time every morning, with almost zero exceptions. Furthermore, they keep their bedrooms quite cool, between 65 and 68 degrees, because aging bodies struggle significantly to drop their core temperature, which is an absolute biological requirement for initiating sleep. They also deliberately avoid television and phone screens for a full hour before bed, to let the prefrontal cortex truly calm down. And the synergy tip here is wonderful and so relaxing. Just 10 minutes of slow, deep belly breathing right before sleep lowers nighttime cortisol, your stress hormone, by over 20%. This is what helps your body achieve that elusive, brain-clearing deep sleep.
Moving on to Section 2, the structural rebuild, resistance movement, and deliberate protein. We are now transitioning into our second foundational phase. We've taken care of the water and the essential rest, so now we have to focus on how we maintain our physical strength, prevent those catastrophic, life-altering falls, and stay independently mobile. To understand this properly, we really must gently address a biological reality called anabolic resistance. Now that sounds complicated, but it's just the reduced ability of your aging muscle cells to respond to the protein you eat and the exercise you do. In very simple, comforting terms, your muscles are not lazy. They are not giving up on you, and they aren't shutting down. They are just a little harder to reach. Basically, they become hard of hearing. If a 50-year-old does a simple exercise, their muscles hear the signal loudly and rebuild themselves. At 75 or 80, that exact same exercise might only be a quiet whisper to your muscles. And if you don't send a stronger, more intentional signal, your body begins a rapid process called sarcopenia. That's a progressive loss of muscle mass that drastically increases the risk of falls and slowly strips away your ability to just perform basic daily tasks. So we simply have to learn how to speak louder to your muscles.
So the crucial point is exactly how we send that louder signal safely and effectively. And this is habit number 4, resistance movement. Now please, right away, don't imagine lifting heavy, dangerous iron weights in a loud, crowded gym. That isn't necessary at all. We are simply talking about movement that asks your muscles to work against a gentle, consistent force. You just schedule 2 to 3 short sessions a week, maybe 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And you want to focus entirely on the large muscle groups that keep you upright, that lets you get out of a deep chair, and that keep you walking safely. So your legs, your hips, and your back. Resistance bands are absolutely brilliant for this. They cost practically nothing, you can use them safely while seated right in your own living room, and they provide a smooth, progressive force that tells your muscles to stay strong with absolutely zero harsh impact on your delicate joints. And for our synergy tip here, try to do this gentle movement within 30 minutes of eating a protein-rich meal. The window of opportunity for your aging muscles to absorb nutrients is much shorter now, and this timing is essential to rebuild the energy infrastructure right inside your cells. Which leads us perfectly into habit number 3, distributed protein intake. I want to lovingly dismantle a very dangerous, outdated myth right now. The idea that seniors need to eat less protein and eat lighter diets, just tea and toast as they age, is entirely backwards. Because of that anabolic resistance, that hard-of-hearing muscle state we just talked about, aging bodies actually need 50 to 75% more protein than 30-year-olds just to maintain the baseline muscle they already have. I want you to think of protein exactly like reconstruction bricks. Every single night while you sleep, your body goes to work tearing down damaged tissue. If you don't eat enough protein, your body simply doesn't have the bricks it needs to rebuild, leading to a catastrophic structural deficit over time. So aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein per meal. That's about a palm-sized piece of chicken, fish, or a generous serving of Greek yogurt. And you absolutely must spread it out across breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because aging muscles can only process about 35 grams at any one sitting. The synergy tip? Pair it with a little vitamin C, like a slice of fresh bell pepper or a small piece of fruit. This actively helps your body synthesize collagen to protect those joints.
I really want to tell you a deeply moving story about a man named James. James is a 78-year-old gentleman from Scottsdale who had slowly lost about 18 pounds over a period of 3 years. His previous doctor actually told him not to worry, saying this was just normal age-related weight loss, but it wasn't normal at all. You see, James wasn't losing body fat, he was losing precious, vital muscle mass. His grip strength had plummeted so much that he literally couldn't open jars in his kitchen anymore, and he was becoming deeply afraid of falling. So his daily meals were completely restructured around this deliberate, distributed protein intake. We made sure he had a solid portion of those reconstruction bricks at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, instead of just eating a large dinner. And 12 weeks later, the physical transformation was absolutely staggering. He had regained 11 pounds of lean, strong, functional muscle. But the proudest, most emotional moment was when he shared that he had successfully carried all of his own heavy groceries from the car into the house for the very first time in 2 entire years. That is the incredible power of giving your body what it truly needs, no matter your age.
Let's move to Section 3, the intangible necessities, social survival, and cognitive challenge.
Moving beautifully forward, these next 2 habits might sound like soft, purely emotional advice at first, but I assure you they are hard, heavily researched biological necessities for surviving and thriving in your later years. I want to present a number to you gently, but with the utmost seriousness: 15. A massive, groundbreaking study analyzing decades of human data found that for adults over the age of 75, chronic social isolation carries a literal mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. Let that really sink in for a moment. Loneliness is not just an emotional ache or some sort of character flaw. It is a profound biological state of alarm in your body. It accelerates cognitive decline, it drastically increases the risk of developing dementia, and it shoots your blood's inflammatory markers straight up. The physical, internal damage caused by profound isolation is just as real and just as measurable as the physical damage caused by tobacco.
And this brings us to habit number 2, active social engagement. When you connect meaningfully with another human being, your brain releases a wonderful hormone called oxytocin. This powerful chemical naturally suppresses the stress hormone cortisol. It lowers bodily inflammation, and it keeps the vital neural pathways in your brain dense, complex, and healthy. But the absolutely key word here is active. Just sitting passively in the same room while the television is on, even if someone else is sitting right there, does not give you this biological benefit. You must intentionally schedule one meaningful interaction daily. It can be a deep, engaging phone call with a friend, going to a community group meeting, or just having coffee with a neighbor. But you must be engaged. You must be laughing, recalling memories, debating an issue, actively responding. Think of deep conversation as a heavy workout for your brain. And the synergy tip? Pair your socializing with a light walk. Combining physical movement with stimulating conversation creates a massive surge of a protein called BDNF, which acts exactly like miracle fertilizer for your brain cells.
Just look at what happened to a wonderful woman named Dorothy, aged 83. After losing her husband of over 50 years, Dorothy understandably withdrew from the world. She sat alone in her house, just consumed by deep grief. Within just 8 months, her cognitive test scores plummeted and her memory began fading at a terrifyingly rapid pace. Her family was incredibly afraid she was developing Alzheimer's. But her decline wasn't a permanent disease. It was the biological, toxic result of profound isolation. So, without adding a single new medication to her routine, a highly structured social schedule was built for her. She joined a weekly local book club, had daily scheduled phone calls with different family members, and even took on 2 short shifts volunteering at the front desk of her local library. Just 8 months later, her cognitive tests were repeated, and they had miraculously returned to near her original baseline. As her daughter tearfully noted, she seemed like herself again. Her brain simply needed that life-giving fertilizer of human connection.
And finally, Section 4, the ultimate cognitive challenge, the #1 longevity intervention.
Now, we arrive at the summit. This is the #1 habit. It's maintained by fewer than 12% of seniors, yet it is hailed by elite researchers at institutions like Johns Hopkins as the single greatest predictor of keeping your mind entirely intact. Let's really examine this concept of cognitive reserve. As we age, our brains naturally want to conserve energy. They become incredibly efficient at doing the things we already know how to do perfectly, and they become very, very reluctant to learn new things. We easily fall into a very comfortable routine. But while routine feels incredibly safe and easy, it quietly depletes our cognitive reserve. I want you to think of this reserve like the RAM in a computer, or maybe the heavy shock absorbers on a car. The more cognitive reserve you intentionally build up, the more age-related damage your brain can simply shrug off and bypass without you ever experiencing the actual outward symptoms of decline. Comfort and routine, therefore, are the ultimate enemies of cognitive reserve. Therefore, the absolute #1 habit of highly independent seniors is daily purposeful challenge. Now, I want to be very clear here. I am not talking about doing crossword puzzles or Sudoku every morning, because your brain eventually just gets good at those and stops building new pathways. I am talking about forcing yourself to learn a genuinely new skill, maybe a foreign language, a complex musical instrument, or a difficult form of art. You must dedicate 20 to 30 minutes every single day to an active struggle. In the scientific community, we actually call this productive discomfort. Simply watching a pleasant YouTube video on how to play the piano does not count at all. Sitting at the piano, feeling deeply frustrated, annoyed, and trying to force your fingers to coordinate to play a new chord, that exact feeling of struggle is the medicine. That frustration is exactly what forces your brain into a state of neuroplasticity, growing entirely fresh connections. And you should switch your chosen skill every 3 to 4 months so you never get too comfortable. The synergy tip here is to consume omega-3s, specifically DHA from fish or high-quality supplements. This is the raw structural fat your brain uses to physically build those new memory pathways. I am always so deeply inspired by Robert, a 79-year-old retired mechanical engineer. Throughout his whole life, Robert was a numbers guy. He was used to being very good at logical things. He spent his early retirement completely in his intellectual comfort zone, reading the same types of books and doing the exact same puzzles. But he soon started having trouble recalling names and following complex dinner conversations. His cognitive reserve was dropping dangerously low. So the prescription for him was very simple. Pick something you've never done, something you are genuinely bad at, and struggle with it every day. He chose oil painting. And let me tell you, he was absolutely terrible at it for the first few months, and it made him incredibly frustrated. But as he beautifully realized, the resistance is the point. The active frustration of learning to mix colors and control a foreign object like a brush was exactly the mental workout his brain was starving for. 18 months later, he was painting beautiful landscapes, he'd made wonderful new friends in a local art group, and his medical cognitive assessments showed measurable improvement across the board. Not just maintenance, folks, but actual, literal improvement in brain function at age 79. Let's move smoothly forward now and see how all of this builds into our final summary. Here is your 6 habits and synergy toolkits. We have hydration, front-loaded in the morning with that tiny pinch of sea salt. We have consistent, protective sleep, aided by deep, calming breathing. We have gentle resistance movement, done right before we eat. We have our protein spread evenly throughout the day to give our bodies the reconstruction bricks they desperately need. We have active social engagement, paired with a bit of physical movement to fertilize the brain. And finally, we have cognitive challenge, leaning into that productive discomfort to build our brain's resilience, supported by healthy omega-3s. Now, looking at this list, please, I ask you not to feel overwhelmed. You absolutely do not need to do everything perfectly starting tomorrow morning. The most successful, vibrant, independent seniors pick just one of these habits to focus on first, gently mastering it before moving on to the next.
And that brings me to a very important question I would love to ask you directly today.
Which of these 6 habits will you actively choose to build to make the absolute most of the beautiful time the clock still has? I want to invite you into our ongoing supportive conversation. Please go down to the comments below, share your age with us, and tell us which habit you feel strongest in right now and which one you want to bravely start working on today. This explainer is part of a deeply encouraging, community-driven space, and simply writing down your goal for others to see is a wonderful, powerful first step toward making it a daily reality.
I want to leave you today with this final, deeply beautiful thought. So often, modern society treats life after 75 as nothing more than a slow, inevitable countdown. Well, let me assure you, it is not a countdown. It is a continuation. Your body and your remarkable mind possess an incredible, stubborn capacity for resilience, for healing, and for profound joy. Implementing these daily habits isn't about frantically trying to turn back the clock or chasing youth. It is about honoring the incredible, hard-working vessel you have been given, so you can keep carrying your own groceries, visiting the people you love, and laughing until your eyes water for years to come. True independence is always, always worth the effort. Thank you so much for spending this time learning and growing with me today. Take wonderful care of yourself and keep moving forward.